of the Haudenosaunee. I will first start by telling something about myself. I'm an artist and photographer who lives in Zealand. I studied art at AKV St. Joost in Breda, and I graduated in 2000. Ever since, I've been committed to work on projects where it's about people or where it's about the world. That's also a part of my nature. I feel very connected, but also influenced by everything around me. And yeah, I try to spend a lot of time in nature. I also try to spend a lot of time in the classroom for several projects. I teach children about certain topics that live in society. The seven generation philosophy is one of them, and I started with this project because yeah, I'm sometimes very hurt by the way the way how we treat Mother Nature, or the Creator, as the natives call her. When I walk outside in the woods or on the beaches, I sometimes I sometimes get depressed by all the plastic and shit you find lying around there. So yeah, I sometimes try to collect these things, but then I also lose my interest in nature. And at one point, I decided that um, it's possible to only carry one garbage bag at a time when you're walking in nature and connecting. And by saying so, I mean everybody has to try uh, to do what he or she is able uh, to do. And for me, that is in my own part of the county where I live, try to educate children and also adults, and try to introduce them to certain topics. And for the seven generation philosophy, I had the idea at one point. I think like, yeah, this is one of the oldest cultures in the world. So I would say they have a lot of knowledge on how we should treat the world and how we should embrace her. So I started to make a plan to visit the Haudenosaunee. Haudenosaunee means people of the Longhouse. It's part of the Six Nations, uh, six six reservations, or not reservations, um, six groups of peoples came together under the the great law of peace. And yeah, for me that was also like really a romantic idea, because we have these ideas about the movies we see. We have these ideas about sometimes you see the documentaries where you see people traveling to certain parts of the world. And my work is always about showing things or people or nature the way it is, not to make it more beautiful, or but also really try to tell the story. And so I had this idea, like, yeah, how am I going to bring this this these thoughts and this culture to the children of our schools. So I decided to yeah, to visit a few schools in the Netherlands, and I spoke to children at elementary schools, but also at universities and at high schools. And I said, like, I'm going to visit the natives. I'm going to see if I can speak to yeah, the people who lead the tribes there. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the camera I brought. I will translate them and will bring them with me to yeah, to the US and to Canada. So I made this document that lasted for that was like 25 or 30 minutes long, where children asked all kind of questions about how should we treat mother nature. Is there something we can do about the plastic soup? What was most interesting, I thought, was like that the questions from the children from the elementary schools were actually the most interesting ones. After that, it were the questions from the high school and then the universities, because the children seem to be the most with themselves and connected with nature, but also I could really feel some children were affected by things that are broadcasted in the media on the plastic soup. Nowadays we do not use the word global warming anymore, but I also spoke with them about it and showed them a few stills from documentaries. And so I made this document, and then decided I wanted to visit the Haudenosaunee, or the Iroquois. So I started a small journey on how to get in touch with all six clans, and it was really hard at the beginning, because when you start to look into every different tribe, some tribes only still exist with 1,400 people, and a lot of them don't speak their own language anymore. So at one point, I started to become a bit depressed, but because it was hard to get a foot on the ground in the reservations, so I decided, I'm just gonna go there and see what happens. But then a week before I left, almost felt like something happened that needed to happen, and within one day I got invited by really a lot of people. So at the end, before I left, I knew I was going to meet 21 people from all the 6 nations, and I was invited at their schools, at elementary schools. And what affected me most was that I arrived in New York, and I drove up to the northern part of New York, close to the Canadian border. And at one point, we have this romantic feeling like something is going to happen now. When I arrive, I first arrived at the Mohawk reservation, and at one point you really do not have an idea where when you enter the reservation, or when you arrive there, because it's also all started for example, the first thing you see when you enter the reservations of almost all 6 nations, you see the sign of McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's. And that's also the hardest part. That also tells a lot about the way they live. And I first met Mike Tarbell. He's a 76-year-old Mohawk who teaches at Buffalo University, and who also works as a volunteer at the National Museum of the American Indian. And I showed him the questions, but also spoke with him for 4 hours about the state of the world and the way we live. And the first thing I noticed is the Haudenosaunee are so close to nature that it's like in everything they breathe and everything they say, it comes natural to them, but so natural that that it's hard to compare yourself when you live in Europe or in the United States to the way they live. And what I learned from this first meeting is that the Haudenosaunee are struggling, that it's really hard for them. And after that, I also thought I do not only want to bring the answers to the questions the children brought, but I also want to become more of a more of a spokesperson for their culture. And I'm not an academic. I'm someone who feels something and then starts doing it. I start to make images, start to talk to people, try to bring this message in the world. And yeah, I'm blessed. I have a big network, so I can reach a lot of people. But for me, the hardest part is now, yeah, how to bring this message of the Haudenosaunee to the rest of the world. And that was only what I experienced after my first meeting there. And I had one or two interviews lined up for over a period of 3 to 4 weeks. I traveled at night from one rest to another. And everybody welcomed me with open arms. And they also always say, like, if you want to share your knowledge, you do it through a song or through a dance or through a story. So they told me a lot of stories, a lot of native stories that were really interesting, but also the way they raise their children and experience life. For example, plastic and using plastic has become such a habit for us. Me personally, I think they should ban stores like Action or Price Platter or whatever, because yeah, they're damaging nature. But for example, the natives, when they get their first children, they only breastfeed their children. And she tells you the second interview I had, Brenda, the woman I spoke to, she told me, like, the thing people in Western Europe or in the United States, the first thing they do when they have a baby, they shove something plastic in the mouth of the baby, and that's your first experience as a child. Very often, only after a few days. So plastic has become so normal for us, and for them, it's like absolutely a no-go area. But they're also balancing because they also have children who want to go to school, who want to drive a pickup, who want to also want to be young and join the American culture. And the natives, especially the Haudenosaunee, are pushed back more and more into corners. And so, like, yeah, they are not struggling so much anymore to share their knowledge to the rest of the world. They're more struggling to yeah, to maintain their knowledge about their own culture. For example, within the Mohawks, there's a program. One person a year gets to attend an educational program to learn their own language. And in the Mohawk community, there are like 27,000 youngsters. And because of a lot of reasons, the Haudenosaunee said goodbye to their background because of a lot of them were adopted, were when they were pregnant, they were aborted. They were asked to leave their beliefs behind and to become Christian. So a lot of youngsters also do not know anymore about the ways they should teach. And that's also the struggle they have. And then there's the other part. A really small group says, like, yeah, we have to teach our children things from the beginning, how to be in touch with nature, how to connect with nature, and by really simple things like gardening when you're really young, and learn how to grow your own food. All the children that go to the Mohawk school, which has a little bit resemblances to Waldorf schools or vrije school, as we call it in the Netherlands. Yeah, they get this small imprint. And there's then also still a lot of discussion about the 7 generations philosophy, because it's never recorded actually. A big part of their culture is by telling stories. It was never written down. So half of the Haudenosaunee say like, yeah, there is this belief we have about the seven generations philosophy, but it was never written down, or it was never incorporated into our society. But of course, to me, this is like the only way we should look at the world, at how we treat Mother Nature. I feel spiritual myself in the way the Haudenosaunee do it, just by believing in nature, that we are part of this natural process, that mankind wasn't around hundreds of thousands of years ago, and Mother Earth was there, and when we're gone, she will be still there. So they also believe the world will heal itself, because we are like this splinter under her skin. And that's that also really makes sense when you speak with the Haudenosaunee about these topics. But the strange thing is that we do not embrace this culture. And actually, I don't know why that is. I was invited to the commemoration of the Canandaigua Treaty, where the treaty between the US and the Haudenosaunee, the 225th year that the Haudenosaunee Confederation went into the American Constitution, and from all over the United States, natives also from other tribes, from the South of America, attended this day. And from the national government of the United States, there was only one person, and that, I think, that really says a lot. What I found out is that their beliefs is something we should work on all together to actually to do how they live, by telling stories, by making a song, and we all have the ability to make these stories ourselves. We all have a rich fantasy, so I think we should also use that to tell a story about how we should treat the world, and how we should treat each other. And that doesn't mean we should live in longhouses. Longhouses are the traditional way the natives live. And normally, when the boys are raised, they live with their families, and the mother is above everyone. And the mother also appoints the men who should be in charge, and she can also take this title away, and then you will be never allowed to say something within the community again. So for me, a really important part about this, about the way they live, is I also think that there really should be more women in politics, in economic places, in companies. They have a way better approach to the world than most men have. For example, when a man in the Haudenosaunee culture finds a partner, he will first live within the longhouse with all the tribes from his female partner, because when he starts to have too much testosterone, or he starts to become a loudmouth, the rest of the family will put him back with his feet on the ground. And of course, we cannot live in this way anymore. But it says so much about all these really basic things. And just by telling about the way they live, we also become aware about what's most important. Yeah. So I find it difficult that there really seems to be a lot of interest from non-native people. I also found out that there are like for every elder in the reservation, there are like around 500 to 1,000 requests for interviews from all over the world, from journalists, from spiritual seekers, from students, and that really says a lot. But why is it that we don't embrace this culture more? I don't know. I'm talking to my local government. I've for another project, I've like around 80 elementary schools that I visit with projects, and they all say like, yeah, it's really important what you think about the native culture, but when at one point we need to find the right people who also will be willing to say like, we're going to invest in adopting this culture. Adopting this culture is the most important thing, and educating our children about the way they live. We should do that through through artist in residencies, for example, like ask if a native artist, for example, would be willing to work for 1 or 2 months in a city in the Netherlands, and that he or she will be introduced, but also has the space and time to work on a project, but also takes time for 1 or 2 days to speak to young people from elementary schools or high schools or universities, because when you meet someone from the Haudenosaunee community, yeah, they say like, we raise our children that they're really grounded, they have their feet on the ground, and that's also what you experience when you meet the Haudenosaunee. They yeah, I really I really think we should look after them way better and much better than we're doing now, because they are bullied. The reservations are used for illegal dumping. The reservations are like nothing you see in the movies. It's one state highway where state law where the state law is handhaafd. Where the American law is used, but the rest of the reservation is part of the Haudenosaunee. They make their own laws, and there's also a lot of contradiction when you're there, because there are like incredibly big casinos, and next to the casinos you see children living in trailer parks. So there's a big contrast in their own community. But yeah, I made a lot of friends there, and I'm looking for ways to share their culture and knowledge, but also to help them, because it's like I said, the only way the world can still be saved, and that's really the way I think, is by adopting this culture and this way of thinking. And so yeah, there I arrived with hundreds of questions from children, which I presented to them. I will show a few questions if you like.
Hoe lang bestaan die Indianen al? Zijn er ook verschillende soorten Indianen? Hoe ben je op het idee zijn gekomen om Indianen te worden?
Leven Indianen altijd al in de natuur of niet?
Als er nu zoveel gebouwen zijn, waar zijn de Indianen dan nu? Laten de Amerikanen ook wel nog wat natuur over voor de Indianen, zodat hun nog in de natuur kunnen leven? Is het veilig om naar de Indianen toe te gaan?
Hoe leven ze in een wereld zonder plastic en dingen die niet uit de natuur komen?
Nou, wat hun vinden, hoe wij moeten omgaan met het milieu. Kunnen wij er denk je nog iets aan doen aan de plastic zee? Want die is echt heel vervuild. Die is groter dan Rusland. Kunnen wij daar nog iets aan doen?
Of ze een beetje plastic gebruiken, één materiaal of zo. Of gewoon helemaal alles van hout.
De ijskap smelt nu. Denken jullie dat we er nog iets aan kunnen doen?
Nou, ik heb gehoord dat de Indianen heel veel doen om de natuur weer beter te maken. Maar wat doen ze dan precies?
Hoe leven jullie zonder plastic? Wat denken hun dat het ergste is wat wij doen, waardoor het milieu vervuild wordt en zo?
Wat vinden jullie van de klimaatverandering?
Is er veel klimaatvervuiling waar jullie wonen?
Doen jullie iets tegen klimaatvervuiling? Hebben jullie veel plastic waar jullie wonen? Hebben jullie last van de opwarming van de aarde? Als je ziek bent, wat voor medicijnen heb je dan? Of heb je medicijnen als je ziek bent?
Hoe ze hun kleding maken en zo, of dat ze dat kopen of dat ze dat allemaal zelf maken.
In wat voor soort huizen wonen ze daar? Van welk materiaal en zo?
Ik ben benieuwd hoe ze zichzelf warm houden in de natuur.
Hebben ze wapens om mee te jagen?
Waar komt al hun kennis vandaan over planten en medicijnen en zo? Hoe gaan hun dan naar andere landen? Want blijven hun dan altijd op één plek of hebben ze een vervoermiddel waarmee ze ergens heen gaan?
Wat eten ze allemaal?
Hoe kunnen ze eigenlijk nooit verdwalen in dat bos waar ze wonen?
Van welk materiaal hun huis zijn gebouwd? Of het echt alleen van takken is of ook echt van bladeren en aarde en zo.
En hoe houden ze hun huis dan stevig? Want wij hebben cement en zo, maar dat is eigenlijk niet natuurlijk. Maar hoe houden zij het dan stevig? Omdat ik denk niet dat zij cement gebruiken. Want daar hebben wij hele speciale machines voor en zo. En dan alles, het cement vervoeren, zodat het nat blijft en alles. Maar hoe houden zij het dan stevig? Nou, wat drinken eigenlijk? Want als ze water drinken, hoe filteren ze dat dan?
Hoe zitten die kinderen dan op school? Want krijgen ze dan gewoon les van hun ouders? Of is dat ergens in een bepaalde tent of zo?
Als een groep steeds groter wordt, gaan ze dan naar een ander gebied vertrekken? Of gaan ze dan bijvoorbeeld bomen proberen weg te halen of zo om hun gebied groter te maken? Nou, ik ben benieuwd hoe ze slapen en zo, want ik denk dat het best wel moeilijk is om in de natuur een bed te maken. Als het winter is of zo, lopen, en gewoon altijd eigenlijk, lopen ze dan gewoon op hun blote voeten? Of hebben ze dan bijvoorbeeld schoenen of zo, of iets van takken of zo die ze onder hun voeten maken?
Nou, wat doen ze als ze een wond hebben? En waarmee maken ze de wond schoon en waarmee kunnen ze hem laten genezen? En dat er geen bacteriën mee inkomen. Wonen jullie in huis ook typisch?
Hebben jullie tradities en zo? Ja, wat is de meest populaire traditie? Hoeveel kledingstukken hebben jullie?
Wat eten jullie zowel?
Wat voor vakken hebben jullie in school?
Als er weinig dieren zijn, gaan jullie dan naar de supermarkt om eten?
Wat voor kleren dragen jullie?
Hebben jullie veel oorlog met andere stammen?
Gaan de kinderen ook gewoon naar school? Jagen de kinderen ook op dieren? Of ze dieren hebben en wat ze er dan mee doen als ze die hebben. Waar zijn de dieren eigenlijk gebleven die er toen waren? Ik vraag me af, zijn er toen ook plantensoorten en diersoorten uitgestorven nadat ze dat al...
So yes, this after my first interview with Mike Tarbell, I found out the 7 minutes of questions was way too long, so I had to cut them up in several pieces every time I got to meet someone from Oneida or Cayuga or Mohawk or Tuscarora. Yeah, what I also found out is there's really a lot of problems with trusting white collared people because they have the way they've been treated, but also through history. Yeah, they also say, like, when you arrive, we don't trust you because you are the hunky. And that that I found it every now and then a bit difficult, because they also accepted. I also got invited to talk with them about all these topics. So that also explains a lot why some of the Haudenosaunee really keep to themselves, because it's also our beliefs we still have. I also felt really ashamed after a week, almost every day when I was around there, that like for the fifth time someone said to me, "Look, do you really not teach your children not to call us Indians? We're not Indians. We are the Haudenosaunee, or the first ones, or Iroquois, but we're not Indians. Indians come from..." And really, I got really angry about it. And of course, I totally understand it. But they really had to point it out to me, because also with all the children at the schools I visited, I it was hard to tell them, like, we do not call the natives Indians, but that's what we all say in our society, in our community, but also in schools. And there's also a lot of discussing going on. Like, I visited the Lonnie Bunch, who's the main director of the Smithsonian. He has all the 17 musea in the United States under his wings. And I asked, like, if we're not allowed to say Indian, I totally understand it, but why do we still then have the American Indian, or the American Museum of the Museum of the American Indian? So they also use it themselves, and they say, like, we have this this thing that if we don't use the name Indian, it's a commercial aspect. People don't come to the musea anymore. So that's also hard for me to understand, because I was like, you should all unite and make a big press release in which you say, like, no one should use the word Indian anymore. And when I also see it on several social media, where we sometimes post about #7, people still use the word Indian. And when I, in a personal message, I very kindly request, like, perhaps do you not want to use the word Indian anymore? People feel offended, and I ask it in a really very nice way. So that also tells a lot, that we have all these stereotypes in our head on the way we should look at them. Also, the questions from the children are the same, but a lot of adults also think about it the same way. And but the only way to spread this message is through culture, through education. After our last exhibition, before our last exhibition got closed down, about 7 generations philosophy, we had, like, a few days a week, children were picked up at an elementary school or at a high school, and they were brought to the exhibition. They were triggered to ask these questions, and then to get these questions answered, and to write their own campaigns on how we should treat the world, how we should look at it. And, like, if you are, like, in your own campaign picture, what do you want to tell the world based on the Haudenosaunee beliefs? And it's important we do so. When I came back before the lockdown, I really hoped this would become a big thing, that a lot of people would take an interest in this. And during this exhibition, I also managed to invite a lot of captains from industry from a part of the country where I live, where the nuclear power plant is, where a lot of harbor areas are, where companies are Shell and Total are located. I invited them, but also the Zeelse Milieufederatie. I don't know how to translate it in in English.
There's no translation for that, I think.
No. Based on the beliefs of the Haudenosaunee, they all got together and they spoke to each other. And normally it's not possible you get these organizations in one room.
Rem, you're so full of stories. You keep on talking. It's fantastic to listen. Normally we do dialogue, but you're so full of your stories. So we're at the background. Like, do we let him speak, or do we have questions? And Adrian put up his hand. No, normally we're already in dialogue, but yeah. I can keep on listening to you, but it's not always talk that needs to get the message through. So for me, so I like listening to you. I'm not jealous at you, but I envy you on being with the Haudenosaunee and having all those stories that they need to be told, I think. Adrian, you got a question. So if you want to ask a question, now is the moment, I think.
Yes, I would like, thank you. Rem, I would like to ask you, you're talking about the beliefs of these people. Sorry, I'm not into the term yet, but the Native Americans, I hope it does for them a bit. But the basic beliefs of these people, because you are repeating they believe in, and I would like to say,
the basic belief is a natural understanding about connecting to nature, about being respectful to nature, and that's their biggest belief, that with everything you do, you should think about the consequences for your children. With everything you do, whether it is you go to the grocery store and you buy meat, whether you grow your own vegetables in your garden, this basic understanding that what you're doing, how it affects nature and other people, that's their general belief. And that's something I try to incorporate also in my own life. And by constantly saying it almost as a mantra, as a European, as a Western European, it also starts to work. And the Haudenosaunee, they teach this to their children from the moment they were born. They carry them around. They take them with it. They take them into the woods. This is a general understanding that you should have a deep respect for nature and also try to connect with nature.
Okay, and how I know they live in nature mostly, but how do you see them connecting with nature?
It's, for example, by only at one point someone told me, go outside and look for 5 minutes at how a tree is growing, and then try to experience how you feel, and try it.
Yeah, it makes you happy. You will start smiling when you're telling this.
Yeah, but it's so simple, but it's true. It's
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there someone else who has a question? I don't see everybody in view, but if somebody else has a question.
I see your question. Were you informed about the two-row wampum treaty between the Haudenosaunee and the Dutch?
Leo asked a question. Leo, normally we ask the question by voice. So would you ask the question yourself to Rem, please?
Sure, please. No.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm Leo, and I've been working with indigenous people for 30 years, and I also know a lot of Haudenosaunee people. I invited a Mohawk chief to plant a tree of peace in The Hague in 2006. And in 2013, we commemorated the two-row wampum treaty, which is a treaty and conducted between the Haudenosaunee and Dutch people who arrived there a couple of years earlier and created a settlement there, and ultimately created New York there, which is their territory. So since this is such an important treaty for them still, I was wondering if you were told about it, and if they had any specific... request to you?
Yeah, I was told about it,
Thank you.
and yeah, the two-row wampum is a very beautiful example on how to tell a story. The story about the two-row wampum is both the Dutch and both the Haudenosaunee are sailing the river in their canoes, and they're in the same river and respecting each other's habits and behavior. But when you're within your canoe, that's your territory, and that's where your land is. That's where you should be respected. But on the other hand, the two of you are in the same river, so you should also respect each other. And yeah, I think the two-row wampum is that's also why the Dutch are yeah. We are valued within the Haudenosaunee community, and yeah, I actually at the Canandaigua Treaty they gave me one. So
Very nice.
I was overwhelmed. Yeah, because this is also what the treaty is about. It's about living together as two people, as two tribes. It's about friendship. But you have the Dutch and you have the Haudenosaunee, and this is the river. And actually, every part in the Wampum Belt, yeah, tells a different story. And these are really beautiful ways to get a message around.
Yeah, I saw you were very proud at it also in the movie at the end you showed to us. And I was also wondering, because that's the proudness you have on having that gift, which is very special. But you also today and also in the movie, I saw you talk about shame. And when you said it today, I almost felt ashamed, and I don't know why. But what does it make? That do you have an explanation on what the shame come from? I mean, it's normal for me to like, okay, so we're Western, we're there, and we're making use of their habits or their history,
No, it's more that I the same way they struggle, the same way the Haudenosaunee struggle with things we all struggle with. I could not get to the United States without a plane. I try to. I looked into traveling with public transport. It's not possible, so I had to rent a car. I'm an artist. I do not have a lot of money, so going out for food, the only way to go around there is with fast food. That's the easiest way. So in that way, I feel ashamed that I have these beliefs that I really would like to follow. But then on the other hand, you have yeah, the way you live, and that's of course also the biggest problem in our society. I think really everybody knows that we're not handling it the right way. I think largest part of the people know that we're treating Mother Nature in a wrong way by how we pollute everything, how we keep working with plastics. But somehow we do not seem to comprehend what this will mean for us. A few weeks ago, I read a story about drinking and about smoking, and everybody who drinks and smokes or doesn't have a healthy lifestyle knows that at one point they will they will get yeah, there will be, they have to deal with the consequences of this lifestyle, and there's a big denial in accepting what is being presented to you, and that's on a micro level. But on a larger scale, this is the part I feel ashamed about. this is what everybody knows. This is not the way we should live, but we really need to make this extra step to I mean, every CEO also has grandchildren. I also work on a project on climate and water at the moment, and yeah, a lot of people from the industry say like it's already too late, but still we're not doing anything, or nothing seems to happen. It should be the number one thing in for the politicians, I think. And this is the part that I feel ashamed about when I'm there. I also have this lifestyle. I also have a car in front of the door. I have 3 children. I also try to raise them in with these beliefs, but they also want certain type of clothes, and yeah, this is this part everybody has to deal with. But by speaking about it and also saying it out loud, it makes it more real.
Yeah, but they also said that the children has the future in their hands. They are the ones that change the mindset. So you have 3 kids yourself, being there, having been there, coming back to the Netherlands, in Zealand, has it changed the raising of your kids?
Yes,
In what way?
I try to what I tried for myself is that I should also be aware with everything I do what the consequences will be for the generations coming after me. And I try to think about it that often that it becomes a habit. It should not it should not be your main thing in your head, because then I'm too sensitive for that. Then I become depressed. That's what I started with. I can only carry 1 garbage bag at a time. But that's what I try to tell my children. You should be really aware that everything you do affects nature. So, for example, we also try to grow our own food. We try to buy our clothes at thrift stores. On the other hand, thrift stores have become so popular now that you don't get to buy a jacket for €5 anymore because it's really popular now. And but constantly be aware of it in a positive way, really in a positive way is important. And also this connecting with nature and being aware of nature is it's fuel for your soul.
Mm-hmm. I got a question also in the chat that was from Jan van der Veen. He's already gone. He's ombudspersoon of Future Generations in Holland. He said, when do we stop talking about them like the children are also tempted to do in your movie? And all the questions they start talking about, it's different from them. So when do we start to rediscover our indigenous roots and recreate society based on a similar values that all indigenous around the world have, bottom up, inclusive connection to ancestors and future generations, and living in harmony with nature? I don't know if you know the answer to this, because it's a really big question.
Now, a big problem is, of course, that that they're struggling for themselves.
Yeah.
So they are really surviving. The Tuscarora Nation, they're only like 1,400 people.
Yeah.
So it's possible they will vanish at one point, because I was in the Tuscarora reservation, and yeah, there are some projects being developed in the community center, but it's all really on a really small scale with 2 to 3 people. So
well, since it's a dialogue, I mean, Leo told us that he's been working with indigenous people for 30 years now. Maybe you got a opinion on that? Would be nice. Let's make it a connection or something. We got in some way we got the same goals, I think. So
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one suggestion I would like to give is the chief Jake Swamp that planted the Tree of Peace had made a book for children about their Thanksgiving address. And the Thanksgiving address is something they do every day, and they call it the words that come before all else. And the Thanksgiving address is about thanking nature, thanking everything in nature, everything around us, from the grass to the sun, and the water and the rivers and the mountains and the flowers and the animals and everything.
20.
Mhm.
And it's a beautiful book. And his dream was that it should be translated into all the languages of the world.
Mhm.
So maybe we can try to have it translated in the Netherlands and make sure every Dutch child gets access to this beautiful Thanksgiving address.
I have it in I have it in English, and it's they thank 20 times, and it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Why hasn't it been already translated in Dutch, Leo? You got or Rem? Do you know why? Or don't they know? I didn't know the book, so probably that's why.
No, it's the one of the biggest parts from their culture.
Okay.
I also have a question,
Yes. Done.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because Rem, you said that you need help, or you are looking for help in spreading the word of the Haudenosaunee. How can we help?
I think by keeping the philosophy and the culture in the back of your head, and with every opportunity that arises, yeah, try to open a conversation on on how to spread their culture and their beliefs, and yeah, most important, the 7th-generation philosophy, because that's most adaptable to Dutch or European standards. Because normally, I always have the idea we don't think further than 4 years, the term of the government, and 7 generations seems like a really long time. But I think if we could end up somewhere in between, that's most important. And yeah, another thing is, if you know people who are who have the means to get this into an educational system, I'm all ears.
Maxime.
Thanks. Yes. What kind of, I don't really have a question, but I'm just want to know how you think about this. The thing that I'm struggling with is it's that as well what I don't remember his name or her name, but with them, we also say their beliefs, their culture, we have to keep it alive. But no culture is static. It changes continuously, and which is a good thing. And we can teach other people someone's culture, but you have to make it your own to understand it and to practice it. So that's why I'm kind of struggling. So how can we change that? Like, I mean, we can teach a culture and tell stories, but how do you make it your own so you practice it and you feel nature?
Yeah, I think by doing so, by it's you should, yeah.
Mag ik er iets over zeggen?
Ja.
Can I say something about this?
Yeah, please.
Yes, of course.
Well, I think Rem actually gave a beautiful example when he said, just look for 5 minutes to a tree and see what you feel, which is a very simple exercise. Everybody can do that. But what I remember from Jake Swamp is he said he is meditating a lot, and by meditating with a tree or a flower, you can actually connect and start communicating and feeling what the flower has to tell to you or the tree has to say to you. So it's about really spending time and paying attention to nature. and then nature starts talking back to you.
Yeah,
It's-
100%.
It's not rocket science.
No, but it's difficult to tell someone who who's not there yet. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah, but
am
this is a very simple guidance for somebody who really wants to do this.
I think you should also also do it. And I have a very busy life, but I try to spend time in nature 1 hour a day at a minimum, and I try to connect to the sea, to the mountains if they're around, to the dunes, to the trees, to the birds. I close my eyes and I try to listen and feel, and that's when I'm when I when I'm trying to do so. I think this is what the Haudenosaunee feel and believe on how they experience their connection with nature and show their gratitude to the Creator.
And I think also, as we've heard so far, is starting this off young, doing this as part of education, doing this in schools, encouraging this behavior throughout. So, of course, for like middle school, whatever, up to university, even encouraging time to be made. It's as interesting as from the videos, you see that the magic and the intrigue in this lifestyle is still there at that age, but clearly disappears at some point. But I think it's also interesting. I'm curious what you think about this, that clearly the Pocahontas fantasy, if I can call it that, is still very much alive with these kids. That maybe changing the image of Native Americans at a young age is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I don't know. I also do not know why this is kept alive. It's because I think we have this romanticized idea on how the natives live.
But you had when you start talking about being to the Haudenosaunee, you had the same mindset. I mean, you came there and you had the same view on that. So it's not that you're not intelligent, that you don't know. It's just you don't know actually.
No.
There are just a few movies about how terrible the reservations are, and the other movies are all about how wild the Indians are. We call them Indians still, so that's also something. I think it's most difficult, and we need maybe to address, like for the Haudenosaunee, maybe translate the book, because that's a really good idea. I like practical things, and starting from there. So it will be nice to have that 7th generation principle, what everybody likes, and nowadays it's becoming a sort of greenwashing actually. Also, I think, or we think about the future generations, we do about the future generations. That's something now everybody talks about. I mean, if you see an ad for something, you always see parents with children, or you see the political parties. We've been working on generation politics for 3 months. You see all the political parties also talking about the next generation. That wasn't before. So there is momentum to address it, I think. The momentum is more now than it was 4 years ago, I think. So maybe well, you have to move on the wave to scale things up, I think.
At the end of the document, and also at the end of my travels, I met Robert. He's from Tuscarora, and at one point he said, sometimes things don't need an evolution; they need a revolution. And I think, for example, what happened with Black Lives Matter, that's also what happened. A really horrible situation, made this a much bigger thing, and sometimes also waiting for the first floods before we act. We do not act enough. I really think it has to be with through education, or echt with the X, with plastic taxes.
Yeah.
And but most of all, I think like we need to all grow and also get politicians who put this higher on the calendar.
The first, I was looking on my phone because there was an artist, Dadara, who makes a lot of ads for house parties about 30 years ago, and he made because you said the sentence, not an evolution but a revolution. He has now he has did some drawings for the Mustard Seed Trust. They are striving for economies based on care instead of greed, and they have actually they use the line you were just saying. It's from a care evolution to a care revolution. So it's actually the same words you use, which I found, it just triggered me. Sorry.
Yeah.
I have an associative mind, so if I hear something, I start connecting to other things. So.
Yeah, but it's, I really ask myself what's necessary, what needs to be done for all of us to change, but also act.
Experience pain. I think people have to experience pain. We are too comfortable at the moment. It's just okay the way it is. That's a bit of my idea about it.
Yeah, I also always think pain in a wallet would also really work.
And I think what you talked about is it's about philosophy. So it's about connecting with a bigger, something bigger than yourself, and connecting with that also means a lot of connecting with yourself, because if you don't connect to yourself, you won't feel your connection with the whole. And I think, yeah, a lot of people still have to learn there.
Yeah,
to be honest. And me also. I mean,
I hope things are changing. When I visited the Mohawk school, I saw a lot of resemblances with Waldorf education, and children who I see who are now at Waldorf schools are way more grounded and connected with nature than most other children are from elementary schools, because they'll like get this, they have these digital boards and everything, and really work with your hands in earth and clay and go into the woods is a way to experience yourself and the part you're talking about, and seeing yourself in this bigger picture.
Yeah, that's nice. I see it's almost 6:15. It's more. It's the longest conversation now we have before, so that's nice. We compensated the time, so that's really nice. But we have the rule like shutting it down in 1 hour. But I actually don't want to shut it down. I want to keep the conversation going. Not at the moment, maybe, but on a later moment, I would very much do that. Adrian, I heard you talking about the whole. I always think about David Beum. Then there's quite an interesting interview with him on YouTube. It's about an interview about 45 minutes. He talks about the whole and the connectedness with the rest of the universe. It's really nice interview. He wrote a book about it, The Wholeness and the Implicated Order, but it's not very easy to read, I must say. It's better to look at the interview. I think. I want to thank everybody who was here, and also the people who aren't here anymore and already left, because I think it was a very, very nice story you had to share with. I really loved it a lot. We are also having a conversation with Tanya Hopmans. She's a member of the Maori tribe, but we are still looking for a date and a time, because in New Zealand the time is totally different than our time. So we're working on that, but she is at the moment, she can't give a date because she is in court. and she can't speak to the public because the Maori tribe is having court fights about owning land back again. So that's a really nice. That should be a nice talk. So I think you must be there also, and I think Leo, for you, it's also very interesting. For everybody's interesting to come, but working with that for 30 years would be nice. And we also have the future design with Professor Sayo, who was inspired by the 7th generation principle. That will be 22nd of April. We first had it at the coming Thursday, but we thought it was too soon. So he was agreeing on that. I will share this also with him. Yeah, well, thank you, man. I like the way you talk. I like the way you look at things. I want to know more about it. I think I can speak for other people on that also. I see Leo wants to say something because you got your mic open, Leo.
Yeah, I was just wondering how we can all stay informed or connect somehow, because I have a lot of friends that have connections with Haudenosaunee, and maybe Rem, you're interested to learn more about that. I'm happy to talk to you.
Yeah. I think.
No, so the question is addressed to you, Rem, I think, but I think we just have to organize this, not to make it a solitaire thing. We're talking about future generations design, we call it like that. And I think we have to connect and to make some movement together. I don't know in which way, but maybe we can find out, and maybe you can help Leo, who is already fighting for this for 30 years, I think. So maybe you can use some help also. Yeah, that will be okay. I have your email. I don't have your, Leo, but you're on LinkedIn already.
I just put it in. I just put it in the chat box. So
okay, great. And we keep you connected. I will send a mail to you. I will invite you for the other things, and maybe we can do a conversation more on how to bring it into active. I think that's will be great. I look at Dan. I look at Emma, who's looking back. I look at Maxine, she isn't looking back either, but
yeah,
okay,
very nice.
Oké, en Adriaan, jij bent ook welkom. Ivar, jij bent altijd welkom. Je was laat vandaag. Ja.
Je moet gewoon naar school.
Ja, dat heb je ook wel eens. Oké, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dankjewel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
bye bye.
Bye.